Hello there, this is Hypnosis Help number 2. This one's designed specifically for hypnotists, or primarily for hypnotists. If you've watched the first one, which was primarily for subjects, some of this might be reiterations of that. But for the most part, I'm going to focus almost entirely on people who either want to be hypnotists, are hypnotists, or I guess who are just interested in how it works. And I get this question a lot. They say, I guess the first thing is really comfort zones. And what is comfort zones? Why are they important? Why, what are you going to look for? One thing that's important, and one thing I think that a lot of people I wouldn't say don't understand, but a lot of starting out, especially on YouTube, people who start out tend to make this mistake. I made this mistake. I think everyone makes it at some point. Is figure out what you want and the kind of people you want to work with. One thing that you can do, one thing is almost terrible and toxic to some people, is they say, I want to work, I want to do hypnosis, I want to be a hypnotist, and they don't think about all the different kinds, and they don't think about the kinds of people who are attracted to it. For example, when I made this channel, my starting goal of what I wanted to do with it was, I take requests from people. I don't really do a lot of things that I necessarily enjoy, that I necessarily want to do. A lot of it is me trying new things and seeing what I can do with them. So when I started out, I was going, okay, people are going to suggest things to me. People are going to suggest things for me, and I want to do whatever I can to make sure that they get what they want, essentially. And that leads to a lot of what some people might say strange requests. They're not going to be for everyone, and I understand that. But as a hypnotist, that's what I want to do. There are other hypnotists who do therapy mostly, who focus almost entirely on helping people, with emotional problems, helping people with social issues, that kind of thing. There's, sexual hypnosis, erotic hypnosis, people who focus almost primarily on the, erotic forms of it. There are people who focus on financial domination, for example, which is another thing, people do. They want that experience. That's what they're looking for. And there are people who fill that need. But one thing you don't want to do as a hypnotist is attempt to be something you're not, or hypnotize people when you're not comfortable doing it. Don't go out there and think, hey, I'm going to go make erotic hypnosis videos if you yourself are not really comfortable with them. That's why I think I only have one really erotic video. Is because personally I don't like doing it all that much. It's fun, but it's not something I personally want to do a whole lot of. There are lots of people who do like doing them. But if, for example, if you're like me and you don't want to do them, don't make the videos. There are a lot of people who start on YouTube and they see that the most popular videos tend to be slave hypnosis videos, and they say, okay, that's what I have to do. And then they sort of pigeonhole themselves into a situation where they feel that if they don't do that, then they're not going to get any viewers, and they're not going to get any, people aren't going to subscribe to them, and they're not going to get anywhere. And that's really not the reason you should be doing this, anyway. But a good example of this mentality when I started out, kind of broke my mentality and got me away from thinking that way, because there was a time when I thought that way, that when I was starting out, and I was worried that, no one would be interested, and I wouldn't get any suggestions or what have you, is I had somebody suggest the first blueberry hypnosis. And I made it, and I thought to myself, no one's going to watch this. This is such a, this is going to be a very, niche sort of video. No one's going to watch it. I'm not going to, no one's going to be interested in it. And now it's my, my most watched video by far. So never doubt that you can do it, or you can find your niche, you can find what you're good at, or that people won't watch. Do what's as a hypnotist, do what's comfortable for you. Because if you're not comfortable, your subject's not going to be comfortable. And more than anything else, it's your job as the hypnotist to make your subject comfortable. It's your job to make sure that they feel safe and secure, and I guess in good hands would be the best way to put it. That's what they're really looking for. So don't don't try to force yourself. Second big thing that needs to be talked about. Don't put so much stock in. I guess the best way to put it is don't put so much stock in the idea that scripts are everything. Okay? I myself write all my own scripts, for example, because I couldn't there'd be no way that I could do the scripts of other people. There's just no way I could do it. It's just not my style. Make your own scripts. Practice writing your own scripts. Write a script as though you would use this with somebody. If you're the kind of person who works with people personally, write down what you would say to those people. If you're like me and you got your start doing, over text message or doing over email, then write it as though you would write it and send it to somebody, which is how I do it. Find your style, let it evolve. Don't feel like you have to do it only one way or that there is only one way, because there isn't. For example, a lot of people, especially people who work with people in person, tend to use the more, I guess you would call it shock method, where, they tell people to sleep and they tell people, they snap their fingers and they sort of use the instant induction methods, the quick inductions, where they kind of pull people into trance. And that's not how I do it. In fact, in a lot of my videos, you will be hard-pressed to find any sort of thing like that. I don't snap my fingers, I don't tell people to sleep. I don't do things like that because, in my opinion, or at least in my practice, what I feel is you don't need that. At least I don't. I couldn't do that over text. I wouldn't be able to do it, and that's how I got my start. So I developed a style where I sort of guide people into it, where the break in between being conscious and being hypnotized is gradual. They don't really notice it until they wake up and then they realize something has happened. That's the core of how I do it. Don't be afraid to practice, experiment, do your own thing, because it's not going to work if you're not really into doing what you're doing. You do need to have confidence. That's another thing you need. You need to be aware that whatever. And I get this a lot, especially for, I guess, what you call niche videos, or not even that. Like, if you're going to make, this is something, I guess going back to the problem I spoke of earlier, where people start out and they say, okay, the only videos I can make are slave hypnosis videos. The focus on that is, you need to, as a person, if you're going to do it, if you're going to go for that, or you're going to go for anything really, you need to, even if you don't like it or believe in it, you need to convince them that it's going to work. So you need to put everything you have into making it, the experience be one of, this works, this is something that is going to work for them. I see a lot of new hypnotists who make 2 or 3 videos and then they never make another one. They just don't. They don't get into it. Another thing that one can probably think about is, if you're going to make videos, I go into this making audio files. I don't go into this thinking of them necessarily as videos. And I only use a spiral. And I experimented with not using it, and then I found that people liked it. But I make my videos so that you could easily listen to my videos even without them. You don't even have to look at the video. You can just listen, which is how I do it. Not everyone does it that way. Sometimes people use it as a focus. Use everything to your advantage. Never feel that you can't branch out. You can't try new things. That you can't see where it's going to lead you. I guess with all that in mind, it sort of brings me to the. I guess I should focus on. I was tempted to whether or not I was going to focus on it this time or next time about what you need to look for in a subject. because there are lots of people who are looking for one kinds of subject, or they think to themselves, I have to do work with everyone, or I have to, accommodate everyone, and really you don't. For example, I prefer, personally, I work with people who are adults. I primarily enjoy working with younger people. I have worked with older people, but I prefer to work with people who are between the ages of, say like 21 to like 35 is the group that I usually have. And normally they fall in between like 20 to say 27 is usually where my range ends up falling as it happens. Those are the people who tend to come to me. I prefer to work with women over men usually. That's just personal preference, and it's just one of those things where, I've worked with them more, I guess would be the best way to put it. I've worked with them more over the years than I've worked with men. Not that I don't like working with men, it's just something that's happened over the years. If you yourself aren't comfortable, you need to find who you want to work for. Who do you want to work with? What kinds of people? What kinds of problems? What kinds of things do you want to do? Figure that out and go for it. Okay, don't feel like you have to work with everybody. You don't. You have a choice. They have a choice. And one thing you need to learn is that everyone, I think, needs to learn. And almost in the mark of, I don't want to say it's the mark of a real versus fake hypnotist, because it's not a really good way to put that. But one thing that I've gotten sent before, I got sent I guess you would call it a trap. I guess it would be the way to say, like, it's basically, these guys send, how do I put this? They basically go into a video, and they transcribe the entire video into a script, and then they send it to people, like, telling them to read it. And it's always like a slave hypnosis script. It's always designed to, trick people into, obeying and becoming their slaves and stuff. And it's, first of all, that's not a very effective way. It usually doesn't work. They're usually not very good scripts anyway, because unless you know what makes those scripts, unless you know what makes those words powerful, you don't actually know what you're doing, and it's not going to help you. Second, even if you managed to get somebody, you'd constantly be on eggshells. You'd constantly be having to worry about whether or not something's working, because, when you're dealing with that, it really comes down to suggestibility. And eventually something in their mind is going to kick back and reject it, and then you're back at square one, and they're going to be angry. It's the same way if you are hypnotizing somebody, and then you decide to, put something in there that they don't want. That's a really dangerous thing to do. And it's a really bad thing to do. And if you're a good hypnotist, you won't do that. But some people get tempted, and they feel like they can do anything. And so you end up with somebody who comes to you because they want emotional help, or they want to feel good, or they want, even in the slave hypnosis videos, some people don't want every aspect of it. Some people who are going to be interested in, mental bondage, or someone who's going to be interested in sensory play is not going to be interested in pain, in pain play, for example. And if you try to force it, they're just going to be angry. Or even worse, it'll break them out of trance, and then they'll be angry at you because they came out of trance because you tried to suggest something to them that they didn't want to do. And then you have the problem of they're probably not going to trust you anymore because of that. They're not going to think that you're somebody who they want to work with. You'll blow your shot, as it were, with them, because you decided to basically to work your needs over their needs without asking them. Some people, I've had some subjects who will, come out and say to me personally, and they'll say, "Hey, do whatever you want." And that's a good, and when you have their permission to do anything, that's one thing. when you don't, and you're just trying, you're basically just trying to ninja people, as it were. You're trying to sneak things under the radar. You're gonna break their trust, and you can't really earn it back very easily. Rapport is extremely important, as I talked about in the last video, in terms of subjects, but in terms of being a hypnotist, rapport is even more important. The best way that I've found to find new subjects is through people I already work with. Because when they, if they come to you and say, hey, I'm unhappy and I want to be happier, or I want to lose weight, or I want to gain weight, or I want to work out more, or what have you, if you do that for them, other people around them are going to notice that they're having success, and they're going to go, hey, how did you do that? And they're going to go, hey, well, this guy online, he hypnotized me and helped me out, and he's a great guy, and or a great woman, and they're amazing, and you should go and check them out and talk to them. The next thing you know, you have people coming to you and saying, hey, can you helped my friend out with this, can you help me out with this too? And you never know where that might lead. You don't know if that might lead to them asking you to do other things. You don't know if that's going to lead to them sending other people your way. You just don't know. And so it's very important that as a hypnotist, you build rapport, that you deal with people fairly, and you deal with people in a way that they understand what's going to happen, they are comfortable with what's going to happen, and if something happens where they're not, you need to figure out why and figure out the best way to fix the problem. You don't want to make it's never their fault. It is never the subject's fault if something goes wrong, and you should never tell them that it's their fault if you ever want to get anywhere. Because as soon as they stop believing that they're able to do something is the minute you, as a person, become powerless. Hypnotism is all about the subject. The hypnotist itself does not have any real power. It's all about guiding the subject into something. Even in stage hypnosis, it's all about convincing someone, the people on the stage, convincing them that you have power. You have the ability to do this. If they don't think you do, it's not going to work. But don't try and take advantage of people. Don't try to manipulate, and I guess the best way to put it is don't do things against their will. Don't try to do it. Unless they've given you permission, it's not a good idea. So focus on really making sure that you're comfortable with them, that they're comfortable with you, and that you both know what you want and where you're going to go with it. That's the most important thing. Alright, this is going to end the first video. If you have questions or suggestions or things you want me to talk about, things you want me to bring up, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, I'll make the next one after I see comments and suggestions about what you all want to see and what you would all like me to talk about. Alright, thank you very much. Thank you for listening.